Hillary Clinton looks like she's going to end up winning the popular vote in this presidential election and, of course, losing the Electoral College, something that seems to happen suspiciously often to Democrats in this century. And so for many Americans who are horrified at what they know Donald Trump is going to do as president, that Electoral College is now their last perceived chance to stop this thing and to hopefully convince enough electors to switch their vote over from Donald Trump to Hillary Clinton and make her president instead. Now, a petition has been started to try to get this to happen on change.org. This was taken earlier today. But for all I know, it's hit 3 million at this point. A lot of people very enthusiastic about this. A number of celebrities have been sort of spreading this message, Lady Gaga and things like that. No, it's very popular. Now, what this would rely on is what's considered faithless electors, electors who would go and cast a vote for something other than what the majority or the plurality of the people in their state had voted for in the presidential election. It is not common. The last faithless elector was a D.C. elector who cast no votes in 2000 to protest the district's lack of congressional representation. Now, that's just casting no votes. So the last elector to actually switch to vote for someone else was back in 1976 when a Washington elector wrote in Ronald Reagan, wanting to get in on that train a couple of years early, I suppose. Now, the philosophical argument for trying to persuade electors to go for something other than what they're apparently supposed to, people are pointing to some of the founders' initial statements during the construction of the Electoral College. And this section from one of the Federalist Papers, number 68, by Alexander Hamilton, who seems very popular these days for some reason. A lot of people are pointing this, where he said, "The immediate election should be made by men most capable of analyzing the qualities adapted to the station and acting under circumstances favorable to deliberation and to a judicious combination of all the reasons and inducements which were proper to govern their choice," which is fancy talk for there's a chance that all of those peasants out there are going to go crazy someday and elect some maniac who's going to destroy democracy. Instead, let's get the wise, learned white men to get together and to deliberate and to stop the country from descending into the seventh layer of hell. Now, that's what a lot of people say. Now, before we jump into the discussion, the idea that you could convince enough to do it is a very complicated one, and we have to be willing to admit that it's extremely unlikely to actually work for a number of different reasons. First of all, many of the states, if their electors decided to be faithless, there are possible repercussions where they could simply send other electors. There are chances where if not enough do it, but it gets to a certain threshold where nobody has 270, then the House of Representatives would be the one to decide in the end, and of course, then they would go for the Republican. Hillary Clinton has already conceded, and there's no indication from her or her campaign that she would go along with anything like this. And of course, if you were to actually convince roughly 30 electors to do this, or 27, I think the Republicans nationally would have a big problem with it. And I've read recently that they own something like 250 million guns. So there are complications. Now let's discuss.
So look, on the one hand, you get a little excited because she won the popular vote. How many times are we going to have people win the popular vote and not become president? So the Electoral College, it turns out, was meant to be undemocratic in a different way. It sounds from Hamilton's description like they were supposed to be like the superdelegates that we have in the Democratic primary, where they're like, you say Sanders, I say Clinton, right? Now, as it turned out in the primary, both the superdelegates and the pledge delegates said Clinton. So I don't like that. That sounds undemocratic to me, that the Electoral College, the electors could decide, not interested in your opinion, how you voted. The flip side is, this would be the reverse, where they're saying, no, we are interested in how you voted, and you voted for Hillary Clinton. We had more votes for Hillary Clinton than Donald Trump, and it would be a double ironic act of democracy to say, I'm going to use these superdelegate-like folks to actually give the people what they voted for. Like, we can't lose track of the fact that Donald Trump did not get as many votes as his opponent and is going to be president anyway. That is not what the democratic process is supposed to bring us. Now, having said all that, one, it sounds super undoable, and I know that a lot of good folks are behind it, but you're going to flip all those electors. The Republicans are going to go nuts. Hey, I'll fight the Republicans. I don't mind. But the other part of it is,
refuse?
The other part of it is,
does he go to the military?
Now, I don't know, but the other part of it is that on principle, we do have the Electoral College. We did not change it. And he won the Electoral College. And so now if we were to reverse that, I think that they would be rightly aggrieved.
Yeah. I think one thing that occurred to me today is, and look, I generally, overall, if you want to make the case that we shouldn't have the Electoral College at all, I think there are very good reasons to get rid of it. There are also some reasons to keep it. It's an interesting debate to have, and we have it every 4 years because of exactly situations like this. But I would say, in terms of trying to overturn what the Electoral College is supposed to do, it might seem hypocritical if you support overturning it in the case where it would benefit your candidate, but you don't when it wouldn't. But if you pair it with, and then we immediately abolish it altogether, it's not really hypocritical. You're just saying we should get rid of it, but we should start now.
We should wait till the Dukes of Hazzard lose the popular vote and still become our president. Don't you think we should wait for that before we do something about it? You know, there's 2 states that don't give the winner take all. It's Nebraska and Maine.
Yeah.
And so why don't we, so I know it's hard to get rid of the Electoral College constitutionally, but couldn't states just decide to go proportionally with all their electoral votes?
Yes, so 10 states and the District of Columbia have signed on to a plan where if the number of Electoral College votes they all have together is at least 270, they pledge to simply go with whoever wins the popular vote nationally, which would mean that the Electoral College would not exist anymore because there would be enough votes where it would always go for the popular vote. The problem is right now that only amounts to 165, which means there's still a good way to go. One other bad sign is that only Democratic-leaning states have signed on to this so far. The Republican states, which tend to be the smaller ones, which receive a disproportionate benefit from the Electoral College, so far haven't gone for it.
Well, we know how we would get rid of the Electoral College if the Republicans ever lost the Electoral College but won the popular vote. It'd be gone.
It'd be gone.
Within 2 weeks. Over-under is 2 weeks.
Yeah,
right?
and as we just said, they would have a case.
Well, this isn't going to happen, right? This is one of those things. And what they said, what Hamilton said about the Electoral College makes sense. Because basically they were saying, look, if the people pick an idiot, we can't have an idiot for president. And that's why I think there should be like a test to be president. You know, they always talk about these tests for voting, like name 50 states, name the 3 branches of government. Any of those would have eliminated Trump right away.
Spell potato.
Right. But they won't do that. This is all talk. This is like the Baseball Hall of Fame and Pete Rose. Everyone knows Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame, but nobody will do it, and we don't really know who's voting and which way to go. And this Electoral College, there's a lot of, we don't know who these people are. They don't have to answer to anyone publicly. You know what I mean? They're not going to change it. My problem with this, and just what you said, if the Republicans, if it was reversed, they would fight it. The time to fight this is 2 years from now. Fight it, and you can't fight it this week. You have to fight it in between. Say, hey, let's look at these elections. Let's look at this Electoral College, and let's see. Maybe what you said, where it's not winner take all, where we can count. I mean, come on, we have computers. We can count now. So doing it proportionately when they say it's difficult, no, it's not. It's not difficult. They can figure that out, and that's what I think they should do. But as you said, Cenk, until it affects the Republicans, it won't be done.
Yeah.
Well, I have an idea on how to make this practical. So, you know, at Wolfpack, we want to get money out of politics. But it's not just about that. What we want to call for is a convention, which Hamilton and the other founding fathers were very much in favor of. They said over and over again, you should amend and alter your Constitution. You should do it throughout time, right? And so they put in 2 ways to do it. One's through Congress. The other one is through a convention where you bring enough states, 2/3 of the states call for one. Now, it's not just about our proposal in that convention. My proposal would be to, you know, end the unlimited spending that corporations and rich folks can do, giving them a disproportionate voice, et cetera, and I can go into a lot of my ideas. But conservatives would also be at that convention, and independents and libertarians and everybody in between. It would be a convention for all Americans.
Well, the Green Party will not be allowed on stage.
No Greens.
On stage.
And what you could do there is make all these proposals on just this issue of election reform. Okay? And there are actually some really interesting ideas that conservatives have on election reform.
Like Maine's ranked choice voting that they approved.
And in this case, I bet that if you had an actual convention and you went to Republicans and said, Republican, remember, this is a convention where it's not your standard politicians. The reason that they haven't gotten past in any of the red states so far is because they think, well, so far, the Electoral College has helped us and not you guys.
Well, there is another reason, though. If I can describe, if you'd like.
Okay.
So this is, I hate to be the wet blanket. For some reason, TYT I always am, and it's because I respect you enough to know that you can accept and process bad information. But so there's the two ways to amend the Constitution. There's through the Senate and there's through the states. Now, sometimes, like with Wolfpack, we know that the senators aren't going to want it because they love having just showers of money all over them. But the state level politicians aren't really, they don't benefit as much, and so you can convince them. The problem with this particular proposed amendment is that in both the Senate and the states, they benefit. There's enough Republicans that benefit. So this is a section from The Framers' Coup by Michael Klarman, who says, an amendment to alter the Electoral College would be virtually impossible to enact because the drastically malapportioned U.S. Senate would very likely never pass it because they benefit at the Senate level from this. The red states, which are overrepresented in the Senate because of the weird way that the Senate is set up. But the smaller states would also not because they also benefit from the malapportionment. So there's the idea that the small states, by the fact that we have the Electoral College, some of them, you have to visit them. You can't just go to the big cities. But also, they receive more votes because it's not proportioned evenly by population. So small states have a bigger say with the way things are. Now, you could theoretically convince them to nullify that advantage they have, but that is a hard sell, I think.
So, yeah, all those points are perfectly valid, but on the other hand, they always say an amendment's impossible, and yet we've had 27 of them.
Look, all I want to do is demoralize people.
Okay, so, and it's not to dismiss John's points, the malapportionment based on the states is very logical and a real issue. But when you get to actual voters, and depending on how the makeup of the convention, you could actually have real human beings in there instead of corporate robots. And if you had real human beings and you talk to anybody, including Republicans, does this Electoral College make any sense? You know what the answer is. You know it doesn't make sense, and they know it doesn't make sense. So no, I don't know what would come out of that convention, but I do know that almost everybody in the country thinks that we should have some sort of electoral fix. They know that there's something wrong with the system. That's how Trump won. He said, it's rigged, it's rigged. And people said, yeah, you're right. Republicans said, yes, it's rigged. Yeah. Progressives said, yes, it's rigged. Now, when you get into how it's rigged, they have disagreements, what it means to be rigged, et cetera. You go to a convention, everybody gets to propose their fix just on election issues, not on anything else, just on election issues. And let's sort it out, because the alternative is no fix. And that's an unacceptable alternative because we've got a whole heap of problems here. The Young Turks isn't just us, it's also you guys. You make this show possible, and we want to thank you for it, and we want to grow together. We want to be too strong. TYTnetwork.com/join. Let's do it.